Oliver was preparing for his wedding very soon. Victoria, the most beautiful and the best girl in the world, would become his wife. Initially, the young couple did not plan a luxurious celebration. They just wanted to officially register their marriage and go somewhere to the islands for their honeymoon. But the parents on both sides insisted on the big wedding. It turned out that the mothers of the bride and groom had a common dream. They wanted to celebrate the wedding of their only children with family and friends. The couple decided not to say no to their parents. Oliver had no idea how many concerns and problems such a decision would entail. Now they had to find a restaurant with a big hall, a leading wedding and musicians, create a menu, hire a decorator, choose a photographer and a videographer, and much more. They did not even want to think about the expense of it all. Parents helped them with the organization of the wedding, but there was still so much to worry about. Everything must be at the highest level, said the groom's mother, Agatha. You and Victoria deserve it. Oliver only smiled silently. He was well aware that his mother wanted to demonstrate to all the invited guests and relatives how rich they were through a luxurious wedding. Frankly speaking, she was trying to make a good impression of herself. The boy ascended to such an aspiration of his mom's as his father did. If mom wanted it, so be it. After all, she has done and continues to do so much for them and loves them so much. It is okay to let her have this whim. There was another reason Agatha was trying so hard and was so worried. It was Victoria's parents. The bride's father, Mr. Evans, held a high position at the city hall. His wife worked there as well. They were very respectable and wealthy people. Agatha was happy that her only son, her hope and sports, would be a part of such a family. But also, she was worried. Wouldn't they look like poor relatives in comparison to the bride's family? What if Oliver would become ashamed of his parents? Agatha couldn't let that happen, so she tried with all her might to fit in. She even took out a loan to pay for some of the expenses of a lavish wedding, and after her son's wedding, she was going to convince her husband to take out another, bigger loan. They had to help their son to buy an apartment. No doubt, the bride's father could provide them with a house, but Agatha wanted to show that she and her husband could also afford a lot. But compared to Victoria's parents, it was difficult, very difficult. Oliver, seeing his mother's nervousness, caught this pre-wedding fever too. He had never thought that he might seem poor to Victoria's parents, especially since he worked for a big, successful company and had recently bought an expensive car himself. It was something he was very proud of, but his mother was always talking about the huge difference between them and Victoria's family. She tried so hard to discuss this difference, and eventually Oliver got worried too. After all, it was true. Since childhood, Victoria was used to going to expensive foreign resorts and living in luxury. Oliver had been to her parents' house. It was a 2-story mansion with a pool and big garden. What could he offer her? A mortgage and a life from a paycheck to paycheck? Well, at least he was appreciated in the company, and his salary was growing steadily. Still, there were worries about it. In fact, neither Victoria nor his parents had ever expressed any discontent about Oliver's standards of living. They were well aware of his situation, for the boy was not hiding anything. Mr. Evans was proud of his future son-in-law's success, and there was so much to be proud of. Oliver had graduated from the university with honors, and after his graduation, he got a job in the most prestigious company in the city. and he quickly got a promotion to a senior position in the foreign procurement department, all thanks to his perfect Spanish. Oliver owed his knowledge of Spanish entirely to his grandmother Helen, who worked as a teacher all her life, a wonderful, kind, intelligent person who always understood Oliver. The woman raised her son, Oliver's father, alone. Her husband died in an accident not long after the birth of her firstborn, and Helen had to take care of the baby alone. She raised her son and put him on his feet all by herself. It was never easy for her. From his grandmother's stories, Oliver knew that back then, the teachers were not paid well, and sometimes they were not paid on time. Grandma made extra money wherever she could. She worked as a tutor, cleaned the floors in the entryway, and sold newspapers at the newsstand in the evenings. Mother and son lived on the verge of poverty, but they managed to survive. They only had enough money for the essentials. Then things got easier. Oliver's father grew up, graduated from the university, and started earning money himself. Also, times had changed. Helen went to work in a language school where the salaries were way better. Life got better. Soon, the only son got married, and the young family had a baby boy. Oliver often visited his grandmother in his early childhood. By that time, Helen was already retired, so she was able to babysit Oliver. When the boy grew up, his grandmother was the one who picked him up from school and took him to different sports sections. Oliver loved to visit his grandmother. Her rooms had no expensive furniture or toys, and the apartments had long needed repairs. But in Grandma's small, clean apartments, the boy felt calm and relaxed. It was a peaceful place for him to rest from all his worries and concerns. Oliver knew he was loved and always welcomed here. Helen continued to work part-time. She was tutoring and constantly doing some translations for publishing houses. But apparently, all that didn't bring in much money. The woman lived modestly, causing frank bewilderment and even displeasure to Oliver's mother. Can't she buy herself a new coat and bag? Why does she live with such a beggarly way of thinking? Exclaimed Agatha after accidentally meeting her mother-in-law in the city. I am ashamed even to greet her and talk to her. She looks like some kind of beggar. Agatha herself had recently bought a beautiful fur coat on credit, and she had to overpay a little, but she looked like a queen in this fur coat. Also, she has always resented 2 modest gifts from her mother-in-law. Oliver is her only grandson, and she gave him some cheap plastic junk for his birthday. Oliver had been used to such statements since childhood. Sometimes, he felt hurt for his grandmother, but he never dared to argue with his mother. She did so much for him. She worked very hard, did the laundry, cleaned, and took part-time jobs to ensure that her son had everything he needed. No, Oliver couldn't upset her, especially since Grandma is a wise and patient person. She never took offense at her daughter-in-law, even when Agatha frankly expressed her disdain. She could always find some wise answer to reduce the conflict. Oliver was impressed by his grandmother's superpower and tried to do the same. Now, this wedding, Mother wants everything to be perfect. She helps in the preparations and goes into all the details because there will be so many important people at the wedding. One day at breakfast, she turned to Oliver with a request. "Oliver, dear," Agatha began excitedly, "you know your wedding is an important event, yes?" "I do," he grins. "We prepare for the wedding like for the event of the century. It is a very important event," Agatha repeated. "Powerful people have been invited. There will be many important guests on Victoria's side, relatives, and her father's colleagues. You know that everything has to be done at the highest level. I won't let anyone ruin this event. I understand, Oliver nodded. Of course I understand. I also understand that you take everything too seriously. So you don't understand, Agatha sniffed. No, I do, the boy smiled. I know how important this wedding is to you, and as a grateful son, I promise to do whatever you say. Since this wedding is so important to you, let's make it the way you planned it. The woman rejoiced. I have a big favor to ask of you. Don't invite your grandmother to the wedding. She would look awkward there. What? The previously silent father choked in his coffee. His wife's decision was shocking to him. What? Mocked Agatha. She will come in her old dress and give them some cheap crap instead of decent presents. I will feel embarrassed in front of the guests. You understand that she raised him? Reminded Oliver's father. You and I worked all the time. Do you remember? Who babysat Oliver? Who took him to school and sports? So what? My parents took him on vacations to the sea almost every year, said the woman. Mom, this is too much. Oliver tried to object. So go visit her with a cake. Have tea together, but there's no reason to take her to the wedding. Agatha insisted. Just think of how she will look among guests of that level. Besides, she will feel uncomfortable there. At least think about her feelings. And Oliver wondered, perhaps his mother is right. He loves his grandmother very much, but really, she wouldn't fit in. They were all rich, with expensive cars. They have spent their whole lives making an image for respectable, wealthy people. But Helen, she's different. Oliver thought of her old, shabby coats, her frayed boots, and her bag with a frayed handle. He used to take it all easily and naturally and didn't even pay attention to such little things. But now, perhaps we really shouldn't invite Grandma. She wouldn't be offended, and she will understand. Grandma's wise. She will understand for sure, Oliver thought to himself. Oliver could not remember a single situation where she lost her temper, an outstanding personality she had. That must be the reason why she had so many friends. Helen often has visitors, and the phone is rarely silent. Neighbors, former colleagues, and grown-up students. Many people like the aura of peace and warmth that comes from Grandma. She knows how to find the right words to support people, to help them cope with their worries. She could be a great psychologist. But now the situation is not so good. Oliver realized this, but he knew that his grandmother would understand everything. He would not be offended. It was better to talk to his grandmother than to argue with his mother. Mother was too nervous. It is not going to be a pleasant conversation, his mother said. He should be the one to tell his grandmother that she was not invited to the wedding. Go to her with a cake and just tell her it's an event for young people only. There's nothing wrong with that. Such events are meant for young guests. No one invites old people nowadays. Agatha admonished her son. What about your parents? You invited them, didn't you? The father asked. My parents will give a large sum of money. They will add to the down payments on the mortgage. So you don't dare compare your mother to my parents, the woman said. And now Oliver stands with a cake in his hands in front of the familiar door. For the first time, he has conflicting feelings on the threshold of his grandmother's apartments. Why did his mother arrange this lavish wedding? She had planned this event for VIPs only, where his grandmother could not be invited. And he can't even argue with his mother. Helen really doesn't fit into this company. Her grandson had been the dearest and most important person to Helen since he was born. When her son told her that he and his wife would soon have a baby, the woman had no idea that she would have such reverent feelings for him. She didn't even feel that way about her own son. Helen was raising her son alone, working a lot. She could not devote enough time to her son, but she wanted so much to go with the boy to the theater and cinema, to read him books, to talk with him about everything. But then there was a different mission: to survive. Looking at her tiny grandson, Helen dreamed of giving him all the love and care she couldn't give her son. Fortunately, she succeeds. She was already retired with only part-time tutoring and translating. Her schedule was flexible. Helen was the only person out of the whole family who could take care of Oliver. The woman happily plunged into taking care of the baby. Now she could go to the movies, the theater with Oliver, and she could read him books. Also, Helen taught the child the Spanish language from an early age. This allowed the boy to be the best in the school and won prizes in various competitions. Later, his perfect Spanish skills helped him to get a senior position in the company where he worked. It was nice that Oliver realized to whom he owed the success. The day he was promoted, Oliver rushed to his grandmother, hugged her, and joyfully informed her that he was now the head of the foreign procurement department. And yet, my only advantage over the other applications was my Spanish language skills. Without your Spanish lessons since I was 3, I wouldn't be promoted today. I am so grateful to you, Oliver was saying to his grandmother. Well, there's your merits in that as well. You were a wonderful student and loved Spanish, Granny said with a smile. Grandma, I remember that you were the one who instilled in me a love of Spanish. I remember how you made up interesting games, that the lessons didn't look like boring lessons. You are very attentive, you are so young, and you have already made progress in your career. I knew from your childhood that you would succeed, said the proud grandmother. She was sincerely happy for her grandson. It is a pity that your mother and I still can't communicate in a normal way. Agatha always thought that she made a mistake by marrying Helen's son. Her husband had always tried his best. He worked very hard, provided for the family, and didn't shirk his domestic duties. That she had always dreamed of wealth and luxurious living. Agatha had repeatedly hinted to her mother-in-law that it would be nice to have support financially from parents on both sides, and that only her parents helped financially. They added money to buy an apartment, gave money to buy a car, and took the child to the sea every year. But what could Helen do? She was used to modest living, no frills. She had other priorities and joys. It was good that Agatha allowed her to communicate with Oliver. On the contrary, when the boy was a baby, he almost lived with Helen. Now Oliver is a groom, tall, stately, handsome, smart and cheerful, every girl's dream. Oliver told about his fiancée. Apparently Victoria is a wonderful person, kind, calm and empathic. That is how Oliver described his future wife, and he showed her pictures. The girl is also pretty. The bride had wealthy parents. Oliver mentions that casually. Helen was happy for Agatha as well. Finally, her dream had come true. Soon the woman would be related to wealth and power. Everybody is doing well. The doorbell rang. It sounded hesitant. Who is it this late hour? Maybe Gina dropped by to share some latest news before going to sleep, Ellen thought. The woman opened the door. Oliver was standing on the threshold. Ellen knew by his embarrassed look that this was going to be a difficult conversation. His heart anxiously squeezed. Seeing his grandmother, Oliver became even more nervous. As usual, she greeted him with a sincere and happy smile. She was so happy to see him. How could he tell her that she wasn't invited to the wedding? How could he do it in a more indelicate way? The boy walked into the kitchen and sat down at the table. Helen was fussing, making tea, taking sweets out of the cabinets, serving the table. Why are you here so late? Did something happen? You look so sad. No, nothing happened, but we need to talk. You are scaring me, I will admit it. Taking a seat next to her grandson. You know, this wedding, everyone is preparing for this wedding like it's some grand event. I'm so sick of it. Anyway, there will be young guests only. And well, I don't know how to say. Oliver rehearsed the speech several times, but looking at his grandmother, he couldn't concentrate and say it outright. He knew how much she cared about everything that was going on in his life. Through the news about his wedding excited the elderly woman. He probably didn't expect that she would be invited. How hard it is. Let me help you. Helen smiled affectionately. She instantly understood what her grandson was trying to tell her, and she even realized who was behind it. She felt sorry for the boy who was now struggling so painfully to find the right words to tell her unpleasant news. Well, yeah, help me out. Oliver lowered his eyes. Grandma always managed to find a way out of the most difficult situations. Maybe she could do it now. The number of seats in the restaurant is limited. Right, Grandma? Asked. Right, it is not a very big restaurant, and answered the grandson. And you can't invite everyone you want, right? Yes, we invited parents and mainly young people, just the inner circle. Ouch, he was abruptly silent. Don't get me wrong, you are the inner circle too. I mean, don't worry about it. Helen smiled, covering her grandson's hand with her palm. This familiar gesture calmed the boy and he relaxed. You are not mad? Answered Oliver. Why? The woman wondered. It is a wedding, a fun party for the young ones. I didn't want to come anyway, but I didn't tell you about it, really. The grandson brightened. I was so afraid to tell you about it. You scared me so much with your late visiting gloomy look that I thought something really bad had happened. Helen served tea, and they spent a pleasant evening together. When Oliver left, the woman reflected. She was perceptive enough to know Agatha is embarrassed by a poor relative. She didn't want Victoria's wealthy parents to see the groom's grandmother with a shabby bag in her hands. Probably the overall resentment made things worse. Helen tried to support her son's family and everything, but Agatha remains cold and distant. The daughter-in-law usually spoke to her mother-in-law with disdain, and always thanked her when she babysat Oliver. Then she even stopped saying thank you, and Agatha took the care for granted. Agatha tried to make it clear that Helen had to support their family more substantially, that is, to help them financially. One day after talking to Agatha's mother, Helen realized what was wrong. Agatha's grandmother was just some kind of monster. She was constantly prying into the family, demanding extra attention to herself, and making claims. Agatha grew up knowing that her husband's mother was her #1 enemy. That was the way she treated her quiet and intelligent mother-in-law. She took her the wrong way from the start and always found something to complain about. Helen didn't demand anything special from her. It was enough for her that Agatha let her see her grandson. Helen had heard more than once of cases where grandmothers were forbidden to see their grandchildren. After Oliver left, Helen had a neighbor stopped by. Gina wanted to ask for some eggs to make her husband scrambled eggs for breakfast. She immediately realized something was wrong with her friends. What is wrong? Why are you so pensive? Gina asked. Helen told her neighbor everything. They lived in the same building for years and were used to sharing each other's most private matters. No way, Gina resented. So they didn't invite you to the wedding because you are not the inner circle? And when the time comes to get the inheritance, they will be the closest kin. Stop it. And asked. She understood her friend felt sorry for her, but Gina's words made her feel uncomfortable. What about you? Have you told him? Her neighbor asked. No, It wasn't the right time. Well, don't tell him since they're so brazen. We will figure it out somehow. Helen smiles. Oliver returns home in high spirits. Communicating with his grandmother, as usual, solved all the problems. She knew how to comfort, support, and cheer up anyone. Grandmother wasn't offended that they hadn't invited her. She understood everything, was even able to calm Oliver. His mother would leave him alone. Oliver was so sick and tired while it was only 2 weeks before the wedding. They would celebrate, and life would be back the way it was. Couldn't wait. 3 days before the wedding, a courier came to Oliver's office, checked his name and handed him a big envelope containing some documents. The guy immediately opened the envelope. A stack of papers, a key, and a letter fell out on a chair. Oliver instantly recognized his grandmother's handwriting. He hadn't expected the envelope to be from his grandmother. He was sure the envelope would contain work papers. Confused, Oliver began to read his grandmother's letter. Oliver, you are the dearest person in my life and always will be. Please remember, you have a grandmother who will accept and understand you no matter what happens. You are an adult now. You are starting a family with a beautiful, decent girl. I am so happy for you. I am happy for both of you. I'm sure you will be happy. And now, I will tell you the most important thing. Your mother and I don't get along. You know that. But she is right about a lot of things. Financial independence and wealth are not the main things. Still, it is important to stand on your feet, especially if you are the man and the breadwinner of the family. I know that men have a lot of responsibility. Life is so difficult today. It is hard for young people to live without help and support, and I want to support you. You know, Oliver, I have worked hard all my life, but I have been poor. I couldn't afford to buy you expensive toys and clothes. Even though I wanted to, I couldn't take you on vacation. But I saw that your parents and grandparents on your mother's side gave it all to you. I tried to give you other things, attention, care, and knowledge. All this time, I was saving money and was able to buy you an apartment in an upscale neighborhood. No one knew about it except my neighbor. In case something happened to me, the repairs aren't finished yet, but you can already move in. The envelope contains the deed of gift in your name and the keys. Love, Grandma. Oliver stared at the letter in the astonishment and could not believe his eyes. For as long as he could remember, his grandmother had always saved every penny. It turned out that all this time, she had been living so poorly just to be able to buy him an apartment. Oliver couldn't wait until the end of the workday. He immediately got into his car and rushed to his grandmother. Why aren't you at the office? She wondered. But then she noticed her grandson's condition. You got my letter. The courier must have made a mistake. He was supposed to deliver it after the wedding. Granny, forgive me, the boy exclaimed. Tears came to his eyes. I was such a fool when I listened to my mother. Come on, you should listen to your mother. If you were talking about the wedding, I did not want to come. What am I going to do there among young people? Grandma, please, I am begging you. Come to our wedding. You raised me. I want you to be there for me on such an important day. What about your mother? Would she mind? I don't want to cause a conflict. I will talk to her. She will understand everything. Well, you know how it is. Oliver suddenly smiled cheerfully. She will change her mind about you when she finds out about the apartment. I am sure she will. Helen smiled too. But please, don't think that I'm inviting you because of the gifts. The guy suddenly became serious. I know how it looks, but no need to explain. I know, dear. Helen hugged her grandson. The wedding was just as beautiful as Agatha had dreamed it would be. The celebration went flawlessly. The mother of the groom proudly announced that they were given the newlyweds an apartment as a wedding gift. The woman didn't say who exactly gave these presents. At this moment, Oliver and Helen looked at each other and smiled. Yes, Helen was here. Oliver asked his friends to take care of her, to pick Helen up from home in the morning and drive her to all the wedding venues. Helen was happy for Oliver. A beautiful wedding, happy guests, happy newlyweds. The woman felt that her grandson's family would be happy and harmonious, despite Agatha's expectations. Owen looked decent at the wedding. The elegant dark green suits and low-heeled shoes created a very sophisticated look. Agatha appreciated, and Victoria's parents were very pleased to communicate with an intelligent woman. Mr. Evans, you are a very well-read and articulate man. He and the groom's grandmother found many common topics for discussion. I am so happy that my future grandchildren have such a wonderful great-grandmother, he said. I hope you will bring the children to visit her often. For sure, Oliver assured him. Let them have an island of peace and serenity in their lives too. I would love to. Helen smiled. There are so many wonderful educational and entertaining books for the little ones now. Can't wait to teach them Spanish. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.